Once again, welcome to the wonderful Manhwa Recap channel. Friends, before starting, I would like to tell you that the second season has started, which everyone was waiting for, as everyone loved it very much and it became very popular. And from now on, all the chapters of this story will be uploaded on this channel. The name of that story is Max Level 100th Regression. So let's start Season 2, Chapter 43. Social media was flooded with the news. The 1.8 billion people who had gone to the other world decreased to just 90 million in 3 months. The economy was in danger due to the deaths of the young generation, and schools were closing all over the country. In a corner of the city, a fat man was reading the news on his phone. He had an axe in his hand and his clothes were stained with blood. He was angry because the 4th round had just ended and many players had already died. He felt as if he had lost. According to breaking news, after the 4th round, the number of players killed by other players had suddenly increased. Thousands of security cameras were destroyed, and the city was now completely lawless. At night, players united and formed an online community against the government, raising concerns among citizens. The fat man smiled because he knew that if other players were in his place, they would do the same. He picked up his phone, put it in his pocket, stood up and said, "What's wrong with doing what you want to do before you die? You can do whatever you want to do, so people shouldn't be so pressured by rules and restrictions." Then, in anger, he picked up his axe and slammed it into the ground, causing the ground to shatter into pieces. The anger he had suppressed burst out because now no one could stop him. With a cocky smile, he declared himself superior to all the other players. He had already killed everyone in the room. The room filled up with corpses, and the fat man started laughing. Who should I kill now? He asked himself. He was a little nervous but also happy, as this was the first time he had killed someone in real life. However, the feeling he was expecting was not what he felt. Maybe it was because he had already experienced all this in the 4th round, he thought. But he was angry because killing ordinary people only gave him 1 stack, while the players he hunted in the 4th round were more skilled, he reasoned. Then he smiled again because he had acquired a new skill called absorption. Each time he killed enemies, his bar filled up, and once it was full, he got a random stat boost. The points he gained were proportional to the level of the enemy he killed. The fat man opened the door to the room. He was restless and wanted to kill players because they would give him more stacks. Curiously, he took out his mobile phone and remembered that they had mentioned a forum for players. Suddenly, a sinister smile came on his face when he got the idea to join the forum and kill players there. This way, he could earn even more stacks. He opened the forum. This was the country's first online forum created to help players and change the world. The PCW forum was conducting interviews for membership to ensure that only real players could become a part of this community. Before joining, the fat man had to fill in personal information, level, class, nickname, zone name, and round number. Only after filling this was he accepted for the interview. The fat man found all this very difficult because apart from giving information, he also had to give an interview. But he had no other option, so he filled the form. He was confident that no player would think that a player was killing other players. The next day, following the instructions, the fat man reached a place for the interview. According to the interviewer's message, he had to reach Welcome Cafe by noon, and he could wear whatever he wanted. He saw the signboard of the cafe, which said Welcome Cafe, but he started getting angry because the place was in the middle of the forest and no buses came here. He didn't think much and opened the door of the cafe. The thought came to his mind that if the interviewer turned out to be a fool, he would immediately attack and kill him. So he would kill him too. Inside, the cafe was more luxurious and sophisticated than he had expected. 2 people were sitting at a table and talking. One had green hair and the other was wearing a pink hood. They were the only customers in the cafe. On seeing the fat man, one of them stood up and asked, "Have you come for the PCW interview?" The fat man walked up to them and said, "Yes." The interviewer asked in a soft tone, "What is your last name?" The fat man replied, "Black Flame Dragon." They shook hands and the man introduced himself as the interviewer. The fat man began to sweat. He was about to ask in surprise when the interviewer asked, "Are you a player?" He laughed and then nodded yes. The interviewer introduced the player wearing a pink hoodie and told him his name was Little Cuckoo. He said that Black Flame Dragon and Little Cuckoo could become teammates, so he asked them to greet each other. The fat man greeted him and he responded, but the fat man was annoyed to see that such a weak-looking man was also a player. When they sat down, the fat man looked inside the cafe and commented that their business probably wasn't doing well because there were no customers or employees. The interviewer smiled confidently and replied that the place was isolated, so they had rented it for the interview. The fat man became curious and asked where the owner of the cafe was. The interviewer calmly replied that food was also served here and the owner was cooking in the kitchen. The fat man's curiosity increased and he started observing his surroundings even more carefully. He noticed that there was no camera anywhere in the cafe. The fat man started shifting impatiently in his seat and then finally asked, "So, when are we starting the interview?" The interviewer looked at him and replied in a calm voice, "We'll start in a little while. Another participant is coming." A few moments later, the sound of footsteps echoed in the room. A tall man entered in a sleek black suit, exuding calm confidence. His movements were measured, his expressions incomprehensible. The interviewer immediately straightened up and greeted him. "Welcome. May I know your name?" The man in the suit made eye contact with him and replied in a calm, steady voice, "Black Scythe." Here on the other side, online sitting had started and everyone had come online on their respective screens. First, browsing on his tablet, the man reported that another excellent player was Little Cuckoo, who always ranked 4th and 10th. Apart from these two players, there were 50 more players who were in the top 100 in their respective regions. Hearing this, the president's eyes lit up. He realized that he would now have to get busy conducting interviews. Then he drew attention to the 30-year-old who was fast asleep. Hearing the president's voice, he woke up startled and for a few seconds he did not understand where he was. The president became angry and asked, "Were you sleeping? What were you doing last night that you are so sleepy now?" He refused to listen to any excuses and directly ordered him to complete the 50 interviews by the next meeting. If he failed, someone else would take over his high-level candidate position. Still half asleep, Mary 30 promised to complete the task. Next, the president asked Lost Yak if he had contacted Black Scythe. Lost Yak took out his phone and calmly said that if that had happened, he would have informed him immediately. The president took a deep breath. For him, this was a big loss because if Black Scythe had joined, he would have directly got the executive position. Then he asked Yam-T if she could get reporters to write more articles. The president said that we would need more marketing to bring Black Scythe into our team. Yam-T replied with a smile, "If there is money, everything is possible." The president said confidently, "Don't worry about money. I will reward you properly for your hard work." Yam-T was happy to hear this and thanked the president. Just then, Lost Yak's eyes widened in surprise. He immediately said, "Wait, Mr. Chairman. A new user has just sent a request to join the forum." The chairman became curious and asked who. Lost Yak stuttered and said, "Black Scythe." The whole hall went quiet. Coming back to the present, the interviewer greeted Black Scythe with an excited smile and asked, "Did you have any trouble getting here?" Black Scythe nodded and said, "Yes." The interviewer scratched his head nervously and apologized, explaining that this was the most private place they could find. Then he motioned for the others to sit down. The interviewer noticed that Black Scythe was very handsome and thought he would be quite popular with the girls. He pulled out a chair for Black Scythe, and as he sat down, the interviewer explained that they were also here for the same interview as Black Scythe. The fat man was clenching his teeth and fuming with anger. Just then, Little Cuckoo greeted everyone with a cough. Black Scythe appeared a little upset, yet a slight glint in his eyes and a slight smile on his lips revealed his amusement. Ryu Min introduced himself as Little Cuckoo. The fat man standing nearby flinched, his face uneasy. Fear gripped him after all. Black Scythe was the same player who had beaten him 5 times before. His fists tightened involuntarily, a wave of frustration boiling within him. He wanted to demand answers. Have they ever met each other in real life? What had he done to earn Black Scythe's hatred? Still, the words were stuck in his throat. The interviewer, oblivious to the fat man's inner turmoil, continued to look at him with expectant eyes. "Is something wrong?" he asked. "Won't you introduce yourself like the others?" Lowering his head slightly, the fat man finally muttered, "Black Flame Dragon." At that very moment, Black Scythe gave him a sharp, irritated look. The fat man's heart sank. Did Black Scythe really not recognize him? He was sure that telling him his username would instantly refresh the other's memory. But the realization hit him hard. Despite being killed by him so many times, he had never been important enough to be remembered. Meanwhile, Ryu Min quietly sipped his milkshake, though his thoughts were deep. He wasn't sure why Black Scythe was doing all this, but he knew one thing for sure because this so-called Black Scythe was not who he claimed to be. His real username was Ki Rubingbang, a notorious conman who made his way into the game by amassing wealth through deception and fraud. He wasn't a famous person yet, but over time he rose to infamy upon obtaining the cloning rune, a skill he would later abuse to commit countless crimes. Ryu's eyes glared at the man. The harsh reality was that even criminals had gained power in this new world. But in a way, this was a good thing. It meant that it was easier to track them down. He had presented himself as a fund manager, but in reality he was nothing more than a fraudster. His real plan: to manipulate other players into lending him money using the name Black Scythe, only to disappear without a trace. The interviewer then placed a tablet on the table, scanning the information collected. Once they were identified, confirming, he leaned forward slightly. "Okay," he said, "let's start the interview." Turning his attention to Ryu Min, he asked, "Why do you want to join PCW?" Pretending to be nervous, Ryu replied, "The world isn't safe anymore. I don't feel comfortable going out alone, so I thought it would be best to stay with other players for safety." Satisfied, the interviewer nodded before turning his attention to the fat man. "And you?" The fat man hesitated for a moment. He couldn't admit that he came here with the intention of killing other players. Clenching his fists, he strained to answer. "I have the same reason as Ryu," he said, choosing his words carefully. "I can't even go to school anymore, and with the next round approaching, I thought this would be the safest option." Next, the interviewer turned to Blackie. "And you?" Kim In-ho said, leaning back in an arrogant pose. "I saw a post on a forum and got curious." "That's it," he said dismissively. The interviewer showed a nervous smile. Meanwhile, Ryu immediately saw through the act. Whatever Blackie's site said was meaningless, he was already involved in it. Then, the interviewer's demeanor changed. He clasped his hands together. A wicked smile spread across his face as he revealed the true purpose of this meeting. "There is one final condition," he said, amusement laced in his voice. "To pass this interview, you have to kill someone." Ryu widened his eyes, pretending to be shocked. The interviewer, who was caught in the act, took the opportunity to explain further. "The government has already started cracking down on players. They are afraid of us, which is why they have turned their backs on us. But soon we will be in control." His voice became even stern, full of conviction. "We are no longer bound by laws. It is time for us to show them who really rules this world." Ryu kept playing, acting as if he was scared. The interviewer looked at him carefully and said, "If no one here is willing to do so, then you are free to leave. But understand this: if you leave now, don't expect any help from us in the future." Ryu wiped the milkshake cream from his lips, his mind contemplating the situation. It was clear that anyone who refused would be blacklisted. This whole setup was designed to force them to commit murder, to trap them into this brutal organization. The fake black sickle and the fat man remained silent, lost in thought. Seeing their lack of resistance, the interviewer smiled. "But there is no one to kill here," the fat man finally pointed out. The smile took on a much more sinister form. "Oh, don't worry," said the interviewer. "I have already made the necessary arrangements." Outside, the rain was pouring down hard, drumming on the windows like a rhythmic warning. The interviewer got up from his seat, signaling the others to do the same. The cafe owner noticed their actions and spoke. "It's still raining. You rented the place. You can stay here longer." The interviewer only offered a polite smile. "We appreciate it, but we're in a bit of a rush." Then, as if suddenly remembering something, he turned back. "By the way, where's the toilet?" The woman pointed to the far end of the cafe in the corner. And with that, the real game began. The interviewer pulled his car keys out of his pocket, his fingers tapping idly on the metal before turning to the cafe owner. "Can you do me a favor?" he asked, his voice sweet and easygoing. The woman, unaware of the hidden intention behind his request, offered a polite smile. "Of course. What do you need?" "I'm in a bit of a rush. Can you get my car from the parking lot?" Without thinking, the woman nodded. "Don't worry, I'll take care of it," he reassured her before grabbing a red umbrella and heading out. Heavy rain was falling on the pavement as she walked towards the parked car, water splashing beneath her feet. She closed the umbrella and reached for the door handle. But just as she opened it, several hands reached out from the darkness behind her. A sigh had barely escaped her lips when a powerful grip seized her throat. She struggled, her fingers clawing at the invisible attacker's arm, but her efforts were futile. In a matter of moments, her body went limp. The one who had planned this attack was none other than the interviewer himself. When he saw her faint in his grasp, a cruel smile formed on his lips. His plan worked flawlessly. Inside the cafe, both Ryu and the fat man were stunned by what they had just witnessed. Ryu's voice broke the silence. "What are you doing?" His tone was calm, but his sharp gaze revealed his boiling anger. The fat man, who was visibly shaking, took a step back. Why did you do that?" Without acknowledging their questions, the interviewer effortlessly picked up the woman's unconscious body and turned to them. "Stop standing around. Get in the car." There was a clear authority in his voice, as if their compliance was expected. Raindrops slid down his limp fingers as he placed the woman in the back seat. The fat man hesitated, shifting uncomfortably, but eventually got into the vehicle behind Ryu. As the car drove through the rain-soaked streets, silence hung in the air, filled with latent tension. The only sound was the rhythmic drumming of raindrops on the windshield. Destination: a desolate, abandoned building on the outskirts of town. Upon arrival, the interviewer came out first, hoisting the woman onto his shoulder like she was nothing more than a sack of grain. As he led them into the dimly lit building, the others followed, their footsteps echoing on the broken concrete floor. He placed the woman on the ground unceremoniously and stood upright, his face cold. "Now," he said, his voice sharp as a blade, "who's going to kill her?"